Welcome to the Random Real Estate Show, where the mics are hot and the opinions are hotter. We are a show about random things and occasionally some real estate. If you like to listen, you can find us wherever you download your podcast. And if you like to watch, you can find us on Facebook or YouTube under Houston's Home Connection Team. And if you want to participate, send us an email or make a comment wherever you see this show, and we will get back to you whenever we make another show. Today, I'll be talking about partnerships in real estate, massive baseball contracts, and home pricing myths. Do you remember the first time your parents let you drive all by yourself? Well, we're about to experience that all over again because I'm by myself, and this is the Random Real Estate Show. So, as some of you can tell, Josh is not here by the empty seat if you're watching the video, and he has some urgent personal business to take care of, and it's going to bring me into my first topic about relationships in real estate. But as I've been in this business now 7 years, I have found times when it was just not possible for me to be where I needed to be. The biggest time was one time I was in ICU and I had a closing, but I also had a business partner. And so she was able to go and take care of that, even though I think I did actually call the closing room to talk, and they thought I was crazy, but I was bored there in ICU. But having a partner is a big deal in this business because if you've got a real estate agent who says, I don't have one, you should ask. You really should. You should say, hey, who's going to take care of things when you can't be around? If they go, don't worry about it, I'll always be around. I'm not saying they're lying, but just understand that's tough. You tell me that if somebody has, 5 clients, they're going to be around for all 5 of you if you all need something at the same time. And I don't think that's the case. But if they have a partner, and that doesn't necessarily mean they have to have a partnership like Josh and I have, where we created this team and we do things together. Just having a working partner, somebody that whenever you're on vacation, they're going to handle your business and kind of make sure everything goes well. I usually tended to, when I was on my own, and I have been on several occasions, I would usually, try to have everything lined up. So really maybe there was some papers need to be signed, or just if anything was going to happen while I was gone, it was going to be minimal. Like my partner will come over and bring the papers to you, sign it. There's nothing really to talk about. They don't need to do any negotiating. And Josh and I have actually helped each other out like that through the years, even before we started this current partnership of Houston's Home Connection Team. So I think if you're going to get into a real estate deal, whether it's buying or selling, I think it's really important that you just ask the question, like, hey, what do you have something set up? I know in our office, it's almost kind of a standard yes, because there are people in our office who will definitely, step up and come to the aid of those who are in need, whether it's, hey, I'm going on vacation with my kids, and my wife, or my family, or I'm in the hospital or something happened. There's always been somebody who stepped up in one way or another to just sort of handle it, to show houses or to do something. But I don't know about other offices. I've only ever been in this one. So it's a good question to ask when you're going into that, because your home is your biggest investment, whether you're buying or selling it. And I don't think you would just trust it to just anybody. I would hope you wouldn't. So I think it's a good idea to investigate a little deeper and ask a few questions. Just because somebody has a great plan, we all have a great plan. The plan is what's going to happen whenever things don't go exactly the way we thought. Like, somebody's sick or somebody needs to go somewhere. Is there a plan for that as well? So that's my kind of my little tip and my ideal to lead into the fact that Josh could not be here today and decided the show could go on. So here I am doing this show by myself, and it's a little strange to not have somebody to look at. I normally stare at Josh and I read his expressions over what I say, and so I'm just sitting here in my office all by myself, rambling on. But that, people who know me know that's not anything weird. So the next thing I want to talk about is baseball contracts. And so here in Houston, one of our biggest pitchers just signed a new contract with the dreaded New York Yankees. If you're a Yankees fan, I don't care. They're still the dreaded New York Yankees. And he signed it for 9 years, $324 million. So $324 million. Man, it's a number I remember somebody talked the other day about how when Nolan Ryan signed a contract for like $1.5 million a year, and it was just like blew people away. Like, oh my gosh, $1.5 million. And now we've got guys. I know Mike Trout signed for $400 million last year. LeBron James signed for $500 million reportedly with Nike. So we've got guys that are changing generationally their families based off of their talent, and it used to always be that way. I know a couple of athletes that are friends of mine, professional football players, who didn't necessarily have those big name careers. You'd have to kind of look them up, but they have been able to translate that into not having to go out and get a job at a factory after their playing days, because they were able to translate that skill and craft that they had to a long-term success plan that let them do something out of the norm. They do things at their own way because of that freedom. But when we're talking about $324 million, that's an incredible amount of money, and it's hard for me to even fathom it. But at the same time, and there are people that are upset. They were upset with him after the World Series ended, and he had taken off the Astros cap and said, I don't work for the Astros anymore. The fact is he didn't. His contract was over, and he didn't actually have a contract with the team to do anything with us. I think it felt like if we had won, he probably would not have taken that hat off and said, I don't work for the team. He would have celebrated with us, and it felt a little bit like he decided not to mourn with us, but I understood what was going on, and I think he probably just didn't get real good advice on how he should have handled that. But nonetheless, I'm not gonna get mad at the guy because he's can take his talents and go out and find a way to make the most money he can make, even if it's somewhere I don't want him to be, or I'm not, a fan of the team that he went to. I certainly can appreciate the fact that he was able to go out and get the money he wanted. And I think all of us are in that position that if we could demand what we wanted to get, we would do just that. And it wouldn't come down to whether everybody was going to be mad that we went somewhere they didn't like. So as your favorite players start moving around and start going places, just remember, if you were in the same situation, you have to stop and ask yourself, just how loyal would you be to that fan base or to that place that you came from, not out of the fact that they weren't nice to you or that you didn't like them, but you're trying to change your family's direction. I guess there's a little part of me that wants to believe that if I really liked where I was, I would be willing to take less, because I go, okay, so what's the difference between me making $150 million or me making $300 million? I mean, obviously $150 million, but it's hard to fathom living that kind of lifestyle to know what it would be like to have that much money. So to me, I'm like, if I had $150 million and I liked where I was, I don't need another $150 million. Forget it. And there's even some, I think, some in the past where the Players Association, somebody tried to do that, and they stepped in and said, no, you can't take less money. You have to take the higher offer because you'll mess it up for everybody else. So there's a lot that plays into it. Good luck to Garrett Cole in New York, and I would love to see every time he comes back and plays us, we just totally destroy him and just out of the deal of sorry to see you go, but sorry to see our baseballs leave the ballpark as well. So we'll move on from contracts. I want to talk about a subject. I saw this come up there's a industry newsletter that comes out, and Josh and I have used this as our topic in the past, where we've picked something from it. And this one is the 5 pricing myths your sellers probably believe. So when you're going to sell your house, a lot of times what we find is that people will, they'll say, well, what if I do this, or what if I do that? What if I, price it this way or price it that way? Or I saw this on TV, or my friend told me this. I've been in this business a long time now, and I can tell you that what what most people think works doesn't work. I pretty much everything they've ever asked me, I kind of knock it down just because it just isn't true. And so one of the things that this article talks about, it says the higher a home is priced, the better chance the seller has of getting close to their asking price. So what you'll get into there is someone will say, well, if I price it 30,000 over what you tell me it should be priced at, then there's room to negotiate. Okay. Usually what I'm going to come in and tell you is there's a top end price. So based on the market, and we've talked about this on the show before, your house in one given market, meaning during one particular time of life, your house could be worth, say, $300,000. Give it 2 or 3 years and you go to sell, it may only be worth $270,000, not because your home, anything happened to it. The market changed. We cannot control that. They're not going to say, oh, that house was worth $300,000 at its highest, I'll pay that. If that's not what homes are going for, it's not that they won't pay it. The banks won't loan it. The banks will loan whatever the current market says the house is worth. And that's why it either appreciates or depreciates over time. So, pricing your house too high, thinking that's room for negotiation, what I find is it tends to me, people just won't even come look at it. So I'll usually say something to people that if you price it to where they think you're crazy, they won't come look at it. You won't get, a negotiation. You'll get nothing. And we'll eventually lower that price. And what happens after that first price drop, in my opinion, is once people see you drop, they go, I'll just sit here and wait and see how many more times they'll drop it. That's why I always say that first drop you make needs to be a big one. So if you priced it was worth $270 and you priced it at $280, hoping to get something, the first price drop needs to be to $270, a $10,000 drop. The people who sit there and go $2,000 and $3,000 at a time, it's like fishing. It's like dropping that lure in there and hoping this is the time the fish will get it. And he's like, I'm going to wait for something better. So they'll sit there. I watched a house one time in my neighborhood drop $25,000, $5,000 at a time. 5 months, every month they drop it another $5,000, another $5,000, another $5,000. And people just basically sat there and said, all right, I'll just sit there and wait. You'll eventually get down to the price I want to pay, but I'm not going to get in a negotiation because you're telling me you're still not ready to deal because you're not being realistic. So you want to let that first price drop. If you're going to price it a little above, you want that first time. If nobody looks, you should be saying like, hey, after 7 or 10 days, have it agreed upon. We're going to drop it 10,000 or whatever to a more normal price to let the market know, hey, look, we were trying to hit a home run. Nobody bit. Let's go. Now let's get real and let's get this house sold. The second one, if I give the buyer the closing date they want, I will get my price. So once again, we get back to negotiations. Everything is negotiable, and you're going to find that in a couple more of these. If you give them the closing date they want, it does not mean you're going to get your price. It means you're going to get it sold. But it still doesn't mean they're going to offer you what they want. So I haven't run into this a lot where people say, well, basically the closing date's pretty easily agreed upon. We've been able to work through some different lease backs and things like that. But the closing date never really comes up to be a big sticking point in my market to come up to have any effect, really. You just kind of go, hey, everybody's good. We want to get it sold and we'll work it out. So we'll move on. So if I include a lot of extras with the sale, that will help me negotiate a higher sales price. So a lot of times that says, well, what if I leave the washer and dryer in the refrigerator? I usually tell them, let's just don't even talk about it. Let's wait. Because as this particular article is pointing out, people have stuff. So if they've already got a refrigerator, washer, and dryer, and you go, oh, I'll include that. They're like, well, that's just junk I'll have to get rid of. Now, maybe you've got a high-end washer and dryer that's better than theirs, and that might sweeten it. But wait until the negotiations start. We're going to come into the time we're going to talk about here in a minute about negotiations over repairs that Josh and I talked about last week on the show. And you want to hold off those extras as part of that negotiating time there, in my opinion. I would rather just if you want to say up front, hey, the refrigerator comes with a house, I would rather do that because a lot of times people will move that out to the garage and have a garage fridge. Like, oh, cool. If you're leaving it, you don't want it, I'll take it. But a bunch of other stuff that you think that's going to sweeten the deal, it may not. Remember, just because you think it's a cool thing, everybody else the person buying your house may already have exactly what you have, and they don't need your stuff too. So hold on to your stuff until negotiation time comes and throw it in to sweeten the deal. Number 4, selling as is means the buyers won't try to lower the price after the inspections. So going back to what I just said, selling as is, if you say, here's the deal, you can inspect it, you can do whatever, we are not fixing anything, that does not mean they're going to keep the price up there. That does not mean that if they offered you what you wanted, and then when they find out that there's $10,000 worth of repairs, that they're not going to say, well, we're going to lower the price $10,000. So always be prepared to say we're not doing anything, but wait till you get the inspection. Don't set your mind we're not doing anything until you find out what there is to do. I see people all the time getting really worried about that inspection, and I'm like, the more you worry about it, the worse it's going to be when we find out. Let's just assume nothing's going to be found, and then when it is, we'll deal with it. And then when it comes up, there's not quite as much emotion involved. It's more of okay, here's what they're saying, here's what they're asking, here's what we'll do, and we go from there. But then we go back to that deal of, hey, what if we threw in the washer and dryer? What if we threw in the refrigerator? So that's why I say you hang on to all those extras as part of the negotiation process, in that more so than up front going, if I tell them all this stuff is included with the house, they'll give me what I want. They may not, but they may help sweeten the deal during inspection. And then the last one is, if I come down X amount or a certain amount in negotiation, the buyer needs to come up proportionally to what I've reduced the price to. So this is where we get into the whole tit for tat. You've got to do what I do. It's only fair. Buyers don't care what's fair. If they say, I want you to come down 10,000, that doesn't mean you go, well, you got to come up 10,000. They're telling you it's a back and forth. The biggest deal you need to do in a price negotiation is be prepared to know where you're going to stop. What is your bottom line? I will always prepare a net statement so that essentially we can start plugging in numbers. You know how much you owe. You know how much you need to cover that. You know how much you need to clear or whatever, and we'll keep plugging it in. And there's going to be a number. And a lot of times I'll do this up front. I'll just sit there and keep plugging it in. So if you tell me I have got to clear $250, I will sit there with all the different things that go in, the commissions, the different fee structures and whatever for closing. I'll go in and I will tell you, well, this is the lowest we could accept. So as long as you get more than that, you're at least going to clear what you're telling me you have to have. That doesn't mean you can't change your mind and decide you want to clear 260, but you go in knowing what it is, and that way whenever that buyer comes back and forth, you know where you're headed. But don't think that the buyer has to do something for you because you do something for them. Negotiations don't work that way. It comes down to where do we end up? Where does the last place that we end up at? And wherever that is what we're going to call fair and equitable, because we're going to all sign it and we're going to walk away. Not always happy, but we're going to walk away and we're going to sell a house. So just understand that it's not an equal give and take. That we say the same thing to the buyers. For you buyers out there, just because you offer something doesn't mean the seller has to offer it back. Just because you say you want this, they don't have to do that. This is just a pure, true negotiation, a sale of something, a piece of property. And in that, you just have to be prepared to know where you're willing to walk away. And anything that falls before that, you should consider a good deal. So that is my take on 2 or 3 topics there. It is a little strange without Josh here because I've often said I could talk for hours, and I probably could. You just wouldn't want to listen to it. So we're going to have about a 20-minute show today versus our typical 30-minute show. So I guess Josh only contributes about 10 minutes worth of time because I won't shut up. But I hope you enjoyed that topic. I hope it covered some things you've been thinking about. And as I've said in the past, always be sure and leave us a message either wherever you're watching it or send us an email to just ask at houstonshomeconnection.com, and we will do our best to answer your question or talk about whatever topic it is you come up with. So I'll leave you with Josh and his typical sign-off.
So thanks for joining us this week on the Random Real Estate Show. You can find more of our podcast on our YouTube page and Facebook page, both under the name Houston's Home Connection Team. We are also on iTunes, which is Apple Music, so you'll never miss a show. While you're at it, if you find value in the show, we'd appreciate a rating on iTunes. Or if you'd simply tell a friend about the show, that would help us out too. If you feel like if you would like to speak with us about any real estate items, feel free to contact us at justask@houstonshomeconnection.com. As always, go out and laugh today.